Welcome to unThinkMe with Fakery. We like to kind of intro. I've been doing dream work a lot more, and over the past month, it's been sort of escalating. I got up at like 2 a.m. I got up at like 4:30. Wrote some dreams down. Then I got up at 8 a.m. and I'm like, I look at my clock, my real supposed clock. It says 8 a.m. I look at my calendar. The calendar says 10 a.m. I look at my computer. The computer says 9 a.m. I'm like, oh my God, I missed it. That sucks. Like, I'm so embarrassed. And I actually got up and I went around and I was all mad. I was like looking for my phone, like, I got to tell him like what happened. Total fake out. It's getting really good at faking me out. You're not supposed to be able to read your clock and like
Mhm.
hold logic. So let's jump right in. So like, what is your deal?
My deal is mostly I like to drink tea. Like I like to drink tea. I'm mostly a tea. I try to
What you
be a
got
tea
there?
streamer.
I just got some lemon, ginger, and manuka honey. This is just over the counter though. This isn't nothing special.
This is a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
prescription tea.
I want to do tea streams. I try to pretend to be a tea streamer, but drinking tea has somewhat led to changing my entire life in multiple ways, and then calming my mind a lot. And it led me to watching some Zen videos, and then I kind of became a Zen streamer, kind of, sort of. And then I kind of broadly broke out into all meditation and vaguely into all spirituality. And now most of the time I kind of don't really do that as much, but
Totally hilarious. That's awesome.
That's really
Well,
cool. Yeah.
what is the tea doing for you? So you discovered tea, you discover you like tea. Are you talking like the health effects of various herbs, like that kind of thing?
this is like Chinese green tea, black tea. I really just like it for the taste. I had a friend who was doing something like craft beer, and I was just interested in the fact that there are different tools and different cups that people
Mhm.
use. And it kind of reminded me of wine tasting. So I started to learn about wine tasting by just watching sommelier videos. But I'd never drank, like at the time of learning about that stuff, I'd never drank alcohol. So I was just fascinated with the whole process and the
Wow.
connoisseurship of wine tasting. And I wanted to find something else that I could somewhat get into myself and like develop some connoisseurship. So I looked into it and I found tea, and it just happened to be somewhat related to Zen stuff. But really, what happened was I started drinking tea. I never had a caffeine habit either. So I started drinking tea and I started drinking a lot of it and I liked it a lot. But then I started getting caffeine headaches. I,
Ooh.
I couldn't sleep. I started getting the withdrawal symptoms of having caffeine too much. And that was kind of an issue to me. I thought that was a major problem. So I started to sleep really, really early. Started to sleep really early in the day so I could wake up really early and drink tea very early in the morning,
Nice.
and then just drink a small amount of tea. And then I started to notice all the things. Like I was like, okay, the sleep was a problem. So now what else is distracting me from tea? Because I wanted to pay more attention to it. I really liked it. Then I
Mhm.
stopped watching media because I realized I was like thinking about the news when I was drinking tea. And then essentially that just kind of snowballed into changing a lot of aspects of my life. And it's
Damn.
almost it now I'm thinking about it now, it's kind of a non-dual awareness. Like I'm thinking of how can I improve my tea, and I'm getting better tea ware. And then I learn going to sleep is brewing my tea. And it's like, okay, my whole tea session is not confined to the tea. It's really all of my life. And then I just reconfigured all of my life to make better tea.
I was going to ask when you said you were getting into tea, and I see your beautiful setup there. What percent would you say your enjoyment level is of consuming the tea versus the ritual of getting the tea ready and all of these beautiful side effects of you honing in on tea and changing your life?
It definitely changes. Like there was a time where I was much more into the ritual and I was much more strict about it. It started with just the tea. Like I started with
Mhm.
wanting to taste the tea better. And then it morphed into the ritual. And then now it's more so back into just drinking the tea and enjoying the tea. So
Mhm.
I'd say it's maybe 70% I like the tea, 30% the ritual.
Can you talk a little bit about this is like Chinese tea ceremony kind of practice?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little
Yes.
bit what that is and how it's kind of spiritual in nature or
It's spiritual in that spiritual people do it, I
Mhm.
guess. It's spiritual in that it was cultivated by Zen Buddhists Drinking tea was helpful for meditation. Matcha ceremony kind of grew into this whole thing that Zen Buddhists do. There's like a paying attention to sensory input. There's a lot of small detail to pay attention to, and you can really hone in on those small details. So there's that, but it's not necessarily spiritual.
You said that you had not had any alcohol like up to that point. Like, what's up with that? Is that just kind of how you were raised or something? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's not how I was raised. My family drinks alcohol. I've just never drank, and I still haven't.
people use different leaves medicinally. Like, is that a thing of interest to you, or of interest to this tradition that different leaves have different effects on the body? And like, for example, you're doing green and black, and then it's interfering with sleep. Like, there's teas that supposedly could like help you sleep.
Very little. The interest I have is mostly just for the taste.
It's that.
So I was
gourmet
interested.
thing, yeah.
The type of tea is it's called Camellia sinensis is the name of the species. And it's all the same. Like green tea and black tea are all the same species. They're just processed slightly differently. So I've just been interested in that type of tea mostly. And now I do drink some herbal tea occasionally, but not very much.
James, do you do any of this stuff? James is a pretty food guy. Like, he's done a lot of cooking and pretty fancy upscale chef stuff. So you ever get into too much? Or?
Not really. Born and raised in America, coffee's the thing. America. When we're talking about personal development and altitudes and stages, the amount of effort and attention paid to each step of ritual is basically the same as showing up and doing work. So Zachary really likes the taste of tea. That's amazing. He started to do some things that started to change his life. He's sort of moving up the integral scale of tea, whether he wants to or not. So it's a really awesome thing that is so steeped, pun intended, in culture that you could go mad with all the intricacies. And I'm sure we're experiencing some of that, trying to seek the perfect taste.
Yes, I do it a lot less now, but I mean, I can talk about some crazy thing. Probably the most ridiculous thing I do now is make my own water. So like I will completely strip all the minerals from the water and then add them by hand. And I'm making recipes for the water to make sure that it's like a spring water, but it's a lot more curated, and it's specifically to extract from tea and swallow very smoothly and all this kind of stuff. So that's probably the most extreme thing that I do. But I also I'm using this cup that's silver, and that's making a major difference to how I'm tasting the tea, and making sure that it's smooth from the cup to my mouth. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of things and getting mad with all the details.
I stand a little bit apart from you guys. I call myself a garbage compactor. Like, I have no, like, my taste is, I actually kind of pride myself on being able to eat things that don't taste good.
This is true.
Yeah. But I definitely see what you mean, that the kind of universalizing spiritual thing can be direction on a point of focus, a particular point of focus, that any kind of sensual or thought-based or feeling-based occasion has this infinity to it. And the more you focus on it, the more it kind of expands outward and becomes more and more and more to you, so that it can kind of become your own little Zen garden, your own little like miniaturized spiritual expression, even if it's something like chopping wood, something really simple, building houses, drinking tea. It's cool to see that kind of coming across like cultural barriers and stuff, where we're actually like understanding to a certain extent how this like sensory immersion thing has that infinity to it. I tend to be very visual and cerebral in the way that I approach the spiritual. It's all about like thinking and seeing things, but everyone can have a different manifestation in a different point of focus, and you can even do like probably a meditative like spiritual practice that's based on the refinement of the most subtle aspects of taste. But yeah, like I'm so alien from that. I can't tell the difference between a $2,000 bottle of wine and that crap you get at the Walmart.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's something you could train if you wanted to, but
yeah. Oh, sure.
I've seen a video on your Instagram of you eating a roach. That's not something
that was a scorpion. Yeah, but I like roaches too.
Yeah,
I don't.
that's
I
not
don't want
something.
to. I want to defend Adam a little bit here, so he's not out on the internet saying he's a trash compactor. He doesn't eat garbage just to eat garbage for shock value. He just doesn't mind things that aren't seasoned. If it's just some steamed kale, he'll eat that and be just as happy as if he had,
Oh yeah.
something that someone made a meal. You're not eating garbage. You just don't mind things that aren't developed to taste good. Don't talk about my Adam
I
that
don't
way.
I don't eat garbage. Yeah, like in self hatred. I mean, I
Yeah.
sometimes I got to hit the Taco Bell or I'll starve, kind of thing. But I think there's the other side of the spiritual impulse can be this sort of stoicism of like, well, I don't need this pleasure. I'll take a cold shower. I'll eat a cockroach. I'll endure uh, an uncomfortable situation. I think that can be another part of it. And that's kind of the way I do food. I try to do this. I'm a machine that needs nutrients, and I'm also this emotional being that wants comfort and taste and things. But as far as eating, I just try to say like, what would be the most reasonable stuff for me to put into my body to obtain nutrition, to have energy, and it's kind of alien and abstract for me to use food and drink as comfort fuel, like for emotional stuff or for exploration and novelty. That's strange to me, just because I don't have much experience with it, and I've been using it in this other way. So I just think like eating bugs is very ethical to me. If I need protein, let's say, for example, if I did need protein, then it makes more sense for me to eat these little tiny bug things that have like very little consciousness, as opposed to these like more mammalian creatures, bird creatures that's a little more like, I don't think I feel so great about that. So
Yeah,
it's
but
all on a spectrum.
you're eating. Oh, from what I saw, it seems like you're just eating. That was just like a random bug. It wasn't like you were eating farmed bugs for food.
Well, this was out of context. Yeah, this was this guy who is probably a pretty good businessman makes these suckers that you put bugs inside of, and it's a novelty gift. So someone had given it to me, and that was what I did with it. I also will go, especially when I live in bigger cities, I'll go to the like Asian market and pick up some like worms. They just come in a little platter, throw them on some
Yeah.
stir fry or something. And that's like, yeah, that's actual farmed real bugs. I have it in mind if I have a more stable home base to actually start a mealworm farm and have like actual critters you do these like staged boxes. It's kind of fun. But I think so much of it is just a cultural barrier that, oh, gross, you eat bugs, the kind of disgust, their little creepy legs and stuff. I think if you go up to a live cow, that's pretty disgusting too. They kind of smell like farts and they're all like furry. It's like, that doesn't immediately go, like I'm going to eat that. So I think we have to get over that, boundary of like, okay, like a tarantula is scary to me. A living tarantula is scary. If I find one in my bed, I'm frightened. So I'm going to put that in my mouth? Like, no way. I think that's a big part of it. But they're tasty, they're crispy, they're yummy. So,
Yeah, I've eaten some live ants before, and I thought that was pretty fun, and they
oh,
were
that's
tasty.
cool. Was that just outside, or was that in a prescribed setting?
I mean, I was in Belize, and it seemed somewhat appropriate. The person said that it was something that natives did, so I tried it. But yeah, it wasn't like outside of my home. So it was kind of there was like some context and some setting around it, but
They're kind of tart, right? They kind of have that acid taste, right? Like they have like
yeah, and
alien blood.
it was almost like a spiciness to it. It was tart and then a little bit like a minty spice
Ooh.
kind of.
Were they just little
No
black
idea.
ones?
They were black, but I don't know if they were. I think I'm sure there were some kind of special ants. I'm not sure though.
So then, okay, if you started out as a tea guy, how come Fakery is the name? I'm very confused about this.
The name is really completely unrelated. I like to make music. If you ever use SoundCloud before, the
Hmm.
amount of space on SoundCloud is really small. So I just use my name, my natural name on SoundCloud. And at some point, I started using because I ran out of space. I started using my name with fake in front of it. It's fake Zachary. And
Mhm.
then I just wanted to abbreviate it. So I just put fakery instead of fake Zachary.
Your band name is like Fake Zachary?
It's just a name I used on SoundCloud, but It's not really an official name.
Yeah,
It's just the name I use.
earmuffs SoundCloud. He doesn't have 4 accounts for extra storage. That's not what we're talking about here.
So let me explain the user experience here. I was looking up Frank Yang videos, and it's like your handle is fakery. So and then it's like calling out. It seemed like you're calling out, people with spiritual ideas, and I think that's a really valuable service to do in today's time. Various people making proclamations. Does that gel with me? Do I agree with that or with the tradition or whatever? And then I watch your videos, and it's really not like that. It's more like you kind of watch Frank Yang say things, and you kind of like, oh yeah, totally, like that's interesting, or like, oh cool, like interesting way to put that. That's kind of what it more came off as. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, where the heck's the fakery at? I'm looking for like spiritual mythbusters over there.
I will say really quick, the draw to meet with you was that you were so empathetic and not
Yeah.
dismissive. You
Yeah.
gave your opinion, but not in a pointed or attacking or accusatory way. I really loved it.
That's really what I look for. Like I like different ideas. This might sound a little weird, but early on I really just like conspiracy theories.
Mhm.
And the reason
That's where
why
we
I
all
like
start.
them, oh, yeah, well, nice. But the reason why I like them is because it's like an artistic analysis. Like if somebody has a work of art and they analyze it in an interesting way, but the work of art is our world, so they're using these different ways of analyzing the world, and I can learn about the person's mind based on how they're analyzing the world. And I usually want to encourage that so I can learn more about how they're seeing the world. And maybe I can see the world in a new way myself. And that same type of thing applies to any spiritual practice, any spiritual teacher, and anybody who has any spiritual experiences. I just want to hear more about what they have to say and how they're interpreting the world. And I can learn about them, and I can learn about the world also.
Contemplation, just, what is this? Who am I? What's going on? What is spirituality? Is this real? Am I dreaming? As far as fakery goes, I feel like the people like me who come on the scene and go like, it's this, it's that, it has to be like this, it can't be that. That's, I think, the fakery. That when you're really nailing down what meditation and enlightenment and all this stuff is. And I think the traditions are very clear. Like it isn't that. It's never that. It's not the words. It's not the thoughts. It's not the language. It's not the knowledge of a state that you had at one point or maybe didn't. That's coming from ego. That's coming from a desire to be someone or to represent something. That's so it's kind of fun. It's the old, those who say much know little kind of thing. I think in spirituality, I think that comes out a lot. Been doing the cold shower jam too, which I don't really buy into so much. And you trick yourself into feeling like it's much nicer than you would otherwise if you wanted it to be a shower. And
But what do you mean by
just
you
to
don't
say-
buy into it?
Because it's like a fad. It's like a thing that in recent time.
There is science behind it.
It's like this thing that everyone does, and I'm like, well, why do we do that? What exactly is the rationale? Is this a spiritual thing? Is this really necessary? And I had been doing it for a while, and
Okay.
I actually had my back went out because my muscles were so stiff from like the shock of it. I mean, I do it a good amount, but the compromise I reached was I'm not going to take the whole cold shower. I'm gonna turn the water on, and it's like cold for a minute, like about 1 to 2 minutes, and I stand under it and I put it all over myself and go like, okay, try to be cool with it. Experiencing unpleasantness, I think, and getting used to that is probably good for you, but a lot of things are unpleasant. So it's like, why is this the thing we're all honing in on?
Because you're too soft.
Yeah.
Social awkwardness is a big one for me. Like that, I put myself out there a lot, and walk up to strangers, make myself vulnerable. That one seems really important, and I grow a lot from it. Lately, I've been doing strength training. I was like, I would do like a number of push-ups that seemed reasonable. 10 push-ups, do that like 3 times, you're good. So I read that, like, I mean, this is a thing people generally know, like, do push-ups until you physically cannot do one more. that's going to be the most efficient, optimal way, whether you're, lifting barbells, whatever. Strength training, you want to completely exhaust it to where you cannot do it anymore. And that will maximize the amount of muscle building if that's your desired outcome. But I would have never done that because I'd be afraid of injuring myself. So I wasn't doing it properly. Maybe?
I don't think that's necessary. Probably not, especially not with push-ups. That's going to be too difficult.
Well, I have little tiny baby arms. I can only do like 20.
Okay, well, yeah, it's actually between, you want to get to failure between 5 and 30 reps.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't have to go all the way to failure. You want to just get close to failure. So like if you could, I guess getting familiar with how much you have to get to like complete exhaustion would be nice, but you can get to like 3 or 4 away from exhaustion and stop there and that's actually much better.
Oh, really? Well, why?
Yeah, because you can recover faster so that you can do it again the next day or do it again in 2 days or whatever.
You're doing more. Okay.
Yeah, if you go completely to exhaustion, it takes a long time to recover.
So that's kind of more where I was coming from. So I was trying this new thing because that was really astonishing to me. It doesn't seem like a good idea to fully exhaust yourself.
There are 3 different ways that you can go to exhaustion. So you have you can exhaust yourself coming upwards, you can exhaust yourself coming downwards, and you can exhaust yourself holding. It's good to get to the point where you're exhausting going up, but you pretty much never want to get to the exhaustion going downwards. You can get to a point where you're slowly doing reps and you get to exhaustion of coming upwards, and then you physically can't go up anymore, and you want to slowly go down. Okay. And the same for push-ups. Like if you're doing a push-up, you can get to a point where you like pretty much can't push up anymore, and you can just slowly come down and then stop. Yeah.
Yeah, that's legit. Okay. I've never heard that before. This is weird. It's like this is such basic stuff.
Yeah, it's the concentric, eccentric, and then isometric. Ooh. These are the 3 different muscle movements. So you have concentric failure, isometric, concentric, eccentric, and then isometric is holding. Yeah.
Isometric is holding.
Isometric is holding.
Eccentric, isometric. Glad we're recording this. I'm not gonna remember that.
You're good with failure when you're pushing outwards, for example, but you never want failure when you're like releasing downwards, and you absolutely never want failure for isometric. That seems
intuitively right.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so the other thing too, another thing along the same lines, cardio stuff, interval training, you kind of push yourself to that heart exhaustion and then chill out for a minute and go and ramp it up. Supposedly, that recovery from pushing yourself is really good for your body. It's like a good shock to your system. I would never do that, though, because I'm afraid I'm going to have a freaking heart attack. So, like, isn't that how you have a heart attack? Like,
I don't know. I'm not sure. You might pass out though. I've definitely passed out doing that type of thing. It kind of sucks, but it's not really a big deal.
This has been Fakery and unThinkMe, Adam and James, doing a little podcast, and thank you for watching. Put a little end cap on that.